I'm Jean Linville, and I'm here at the Hickories Organic Farm just to check in on our square foot garden to see how things are going. So you might notice a difference from the last time when we were here. Things are definitely growing and doing pretty well. And you'll also notice that some other squares have been filled in. That's because the first things that we put in were things like the radishes and some of the lettuces that could actually survive during some of the colder nights. Now that our temperatures have warmed and the evening temperatures are warmer, it's been safe to go ahead and put in things like the peppers and the tomatoes. It's really important to be checking in with your square foot garden every day because you'll be amazed at some of the things that happen. You might start to notice that you've got some insects eating on some of your plants, or maybe some other garden friends like rabbits or chipmunks. This garden is actually located in a field that's fenced on the perimeter, so it's fairly safe. But even with that, we're beginning to notice that some of our lettuces are being nibbled by someone. So if you have concerns about visitors nibbling on some of your food, you might want to put some stakes up and get some type of a small mesh material to wrap around your garden to protect it. If you're using rigid fencing, you'd want to make sure that you have an opening where you can swing it open like a gate so that you can actually access your vegetables and anything else that you've grown in your garden. With something soft like this, you can reach over it fairly easy and still get into the garden. So it is a concern to think about what it is you're fencing your garden with. The other thing you want to keep doing is checking your soil moisture, especially if you haven't had rain. We haven't had any rain in a few days, so it's good to just kind of stick your finger into the soil to see how it feels. And if you need to, you can actually augment it with some watering. Using a watering can, I like to use one that has small openings on the end, so it's doing a nice sprinkle, almost like a rain sprinkle on top of the plants to water them. And the other thing you want to do is look for weeds. You're going to be getting them, there's no doubt. Plants that are growing close, like these radishes and the turnips, are doing a great job of keeping the weeds at bay within their square foot. But as you look at some of the others, particularly our onions and our single plants like the peppers and the tomatoes, you'll quickly see that there's a lot of involuntary growth. You don't want the weeds to take over the area where the plants are growing because they're actually taking food from the soil as well, and you want that food going to your plants. So now I've cleared all the weeds from the basil, which makes it much more visible, and also it's going to give them a better chance to grow. So let's take a look at some of the plants that have been put in since the last time we were visiting our garden. So we've got some peppers, tomatoes, cucumbers, eggplants, and small basil plants that have been put in. So these plants will continue to grow. Fairly soon we're going to be able to start harvesting some of the lettuce, so that's exciting. And that's also a good time to start considering what do you want to do next. As you start harvesting plants from your squares, particularly plants that eventually will reach a point where they're not producing anymore, you want to start thinking about, do you want to replace that space and put something else in? And we'll talk about that further on in another episode. Mel Bartholomew's book, All New Square Foot Gardening, has always been one of my favorites. He goes over all different kinds of trellising systems, fencing systems, and I think one of the things that I enjoy most about it is he has great graphs in the book that are at-a-glance information. So you can look up the crop that you want to grow. Let's say you want to plant carrots. You can look over and quickly see that you can do 16 carrots per square foot. So it's a really great quick reference to look up other plants. He also does herbs and flowers. And speaking of herbs, let's walk over and look at the area that we've planted some herbs to be an accompaniment to the things that we're growing in our square foot garden. So this is the area where I've planted the herbs, and it is separate from my square foot garden. It doesn't need to be. If you actually want to incorporate it into your square foot garden, you can. I separated this specifically because of location. The square foot garden is in a lower area and it's wetter. This, you'll notice, has a slight slope to it, and this allows the water to drain. And most herbs like dry feet, as we like to say. In other words, they don't want to be in wet soil. Not like the lettuce and the tomatoes, which really love soaking up all that water. So the herbs have been placed along this area They get a nice amount of sun for most of the day, and as I said, the soil will not be too wet on them. So here we have some dill, we have some thyme, we have some cilantro. So hopefully your gardens are growing well and you're enjoying time outdoors with your hands in the soil and a little sun on your shoulder. So take care of them, keep checking in, and we'll see you again soon.